Hello, we are back with another video on the Rose Ed YouTube channel, and today I thought I'd do a video just reviewing how every team has done this year. Everyone's doing it, but may as well. See what's going on at the moment until the Euros are on. So the Premier League is finally over. It's been a really difficult season, I think, for most clubs involved, apart from Man City, from the looks of things. I mean, you've had VAR, you've had COVID nightmare, and you've also had, all the Super League shenanigans. So as far as seasons go, this one has probably been the worst season for the majority of the clubs in the Premier League. I think the financial implications will, have repercussions for years to come. But every club's in the same boat at the moment, apart from the super rich. But yeah. So yeah. Anyway, back to it. I thought I'd just do a review of how every club has done this season. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to go from 20th to 1st, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rank how their season went out of 10. This is purely Premier League based. This isn't going to include any of the domestic or European competitions. And I'm also going to say their best player, in my opinion. So without further ado, let's get into this. So 20th place, Sheffield United. I don't think you can give them any more than a 1, purely for the fact that, they came last in the league. It was looking so promising last season, but second season syndrome has really hit them. The best player this season, Sheffield even have a best player this season. Every time I've watched them, they've been just absolutely abysmal. I'll give it to David McGoldrick. He's their top scorer this season in all competitions. I think he got 9 goals in all competitions. Not sure how much he got in the Premier League, but there really isn't a lot more to write home about for Sheffield United. So I think it's just better they forget this season, to go again in the Championship next season and try to get promoted. Up next, West Brom. Again, pretty poor season. The football hasn't been good every time I've watched them, apart from when they played Chelsea for some reason. And yeah, they're relegated. They've broken Big Sam's record of managing to keep every single club that he's managed up. And that takes some doing, because I think he's quite a good manager when it comes to stuff like that. So yeah, poor season for West Brom. Only got 5 wins. Pretty poor football as well. Conceded a lot of goals. I'm going to give them a 2 out of 10. And their best player this season has to be Matheus Pereira. Up next is Fulham, and it looked so promising for them at one point. They were playing okay football. They'd beaten Liverpool at Anfield. And they looked like they could survive. Newcastle were plummeting. Fulham were, on the up, and they've ended up miles behind Newcastle. Many thought that the last game of the season, Fulham versus Newcastle, would be a relegation decider, but Newcastle were 14 points ahead of them when that game kicked off, so it just showed that it all went downhill really. Fulham again, the least amount of wins in the league with only 5 wins. So yeah, I think I'm going to rate Fulham again a 2 out of 10. Fulham's best player, everyone thinks this guy's really good, and I think he's good, but I don't quite see the hype at the moment. But I'm going to go Frank Gieser anyway, because when I've watched him, he's been pretty solid and he's alright on the ball. 17th place, Burnley. They stayed up, so with the budget that they're on, I think that's successful for them. At one point, it was looking like they could have gone down, but they strung together a few wins, and they played some alright football actually. When I watched them, Dwight McNeil and Chris Wood going forward, I thought they were actually alright. They're usually quite solid defensively, but they were just let down by their home form in the end. I think they lost like 10 in a row at home or something, or they were winless in 10 at home, something along those lines. And that's just poor. And you're lucky to stay in the league. They were just lucky that there was 3 teams worse than them, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, poor season for Burnley, but they stayed up on a shoestring budget, and I'm hoping to see some more investment from their perspective next year, because I think they're getting new owners, and they're saying that they will back Deitch. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with. I'll go with a 3 out of 10 for Burnley. They stayed up, but that's all they really had, because they finished 17th. Best player for Burnley, I'm going to go with Chris Wood. He's a really good goal scorer, and I think without his goals, it could have been a lot worse for them. Up next, Brighton and Hove Albion. Oh my god, they actually played some alright football, to be perfectly honest. I have no idea how they're 16th. I have no idea, because they're actually an alright side. Oh wait, I do have an idea how they're 16th. It's just they can't score. They ended 16th, 2 places above the relegation zone, with only a -6 goal difference. If you look at the XG, the expected goals that they accumulated, they'd actually be in the Europa League places, which is absolutely crazy. Yeah, the fact that they survive, is good, and they're staying in the league again, which is all they really. If you'd offer that to them at the start of the season, they probably would have taken that. So I'm going to give them a 4 out of 10. Brighton Hove Albion's best player as well, I'd say Yves Bissouma. I think he's really good, and I think a lot of top clubs are going to be looking at him this season. If they can keep hold of him, that'll be the priority in the summer. And also if they can, reintegrate Tariq Lamptey back at right back, because he was immense before he got injured. 15th place, Southampton. I mean, it started off really well for them. They were actually top of the table at one point for the first time in their club's history, but it just absolutely tailed off towards the end. I mean, they just lost game after game after game, and they lost 9-0 again. I mean, what more can you ask for other than to not lose 9-0 for the second season running? And yeah, they did. So yeah, pretty poor season from Southampton considering the way it started off. And I think, at one point they were probably looking to push Europa League places, probably push even, the UEFA Conference League, finishing 7th. That was an attainable dream for them, but, they bought it really. So yeah, if I'm going to be harsh on Southampton, I think you have to say 3 out of 10 because they've just been absolutely woeful since the turn of the year. As for Southampton's best player this year, I think I'm going to give it to James Ward-Prowse. I mean, he scored some vital free kicks for them at the start of the season. I think he's got 9 goals this season for Southampton, not all in the league obviously, but he's been quite good. And it's looking like he might get picked for England as well, so it shows that, he's obviously quite good at something. 14th place, Crystal Palace, and yet again, just a pretty underwhelming season. I think it was clear that they were safe from, a few months ago, but they were never going to challenge for Europe. And I think with the players they had at their disposal, they had Eze, they had Zaha, they had Benteke who was in form. I think they could have done it slightly better than 14th, but yeah, Hodgson is leaving as well, so it's looking like they're going to get new management next year. Potentially Frank Lampard, which would be an interesting appointment. I would actually like to see how that turns out, but yeah, we'll see. So I think I'm going to give Crystal Palace a 5 out of 10. I mean, they didn't get relegated, they didn't get promoted. I think it was a pretty bog standard season for them. They could have done more, but they didn't. It was a difficult season anyway with COVID and stuff like that, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. And their best player, this is a difficult one. Everyone's going to say Zaha or something, but I think he could have done better. I think he underperformed whenever I watched him. I'm going to go for an outside the box one in this one. I'm going to go for the goalkeeper Gaeta. I thought he was really good whenever I watched Crystal Palace. He always filled me with confidence that he was going to save something, he's going to claim something, and he's also good with the ball at his feet. Up the table to 13th, Wolverhampton Wanderers. Really, really poor season by their standards. They could have been pushing Europe, especially with the squad they've got. You'd expect a lot more than 13th. And Nuno Espirito Santos is gone, so I think you have to say this has been a cataclysmic failure on the part of Wolverhampton Wanderers. So yeah, I think I can only really give them a 3. It's been really, really poor and underwhelming. I guess you can feel sorry for them as well because Raul Jimenez had that awful head injury, and I think if he was still in the side, they would have finished higher than 13th. But even so, I mean, they had the players around him like Pedro Neto and Ruben Neves and stuff, and they just underachieved. So yeah, I think you can only give them a 3. So I've just looked at their top scorer, and it was Pedro Neto with 5 goals. And I mean, how can your top scorer of the season only have 5 goals? I mean, that is abysmal. But I am going to give it to Pedro Neto as their best player because whenever I watched them, he was really exciting and he's really good. And I think he'll get a move to a bigger team sooner rather than later. All respect to Wolves, but I think he will. In 12th place, we have Newcastle United, and I mean, it started off terribly. It looked like they were going to get relegated. You saw people like True Geordie, you saw Rory on the kickoff, and everyone saying that it's looking like they could get relegated. But they managed to finish 12th, which is massively exceeding expectations. I don't know what it was about Steve Bruce, but he just pulled it out of the bag as soon as everything was looking bleak, and finishing 12th. That's pretty good for Newcastle considering the lack of investment they've had. Now, this is an interesting one as to who their best player has been this season, but they've not really had anyone playing well consistently whenever I've watched them. I mean, even Alan Saint-Maximin, has been injured and he had COVID, so he's been out for a long period of time. I'm going to give it to Joe Willock. I mean, I think he's scored 7 in a row, 7 goals in a row. I think he's 4 games off Jamie Vardy's record. I mean, that is ridiculous. They'll probably be looking to sign him this summer as well, so Arsenal can be expecting a hefty price. So yeah, all in all, a pretty average season for Newcastle if you balance out both extremes. So I think I can only really give them a 5. But yeah, no, if they continue to play like how they did towards the end of the season for the majority of next season, they could get top half. They could push. Up next, 11th place, Aston Villa. And similar in way to Southampton, apart from nowhere near as extreme. Started off really well, looked promising for Europe, and then sort of dipped, towards the end of the season. But I think you can expect that again with, COVID and no fans and all the other life pressures that come with the pandemic. I think when you consider the fact that they were almost relegated last season, 11th place is a really, really good progression. And I mean, next season, if they can just build off this season, they could potentially get Europe. I think they're really good. They've got a good squad. If they invest well in the summer, I think they'll be all right. So yeah, I think I'm going to give Aston Villa a 6 out of 10. Could have been better, but could have been a lot worse. Player of the season for me for Aston Villa as well, it's probably going to have to be Emi Martinez. Really good signing. He kept, 15 clean sheets or so? Really, really good keeper. And I think he just pips Grealish to it. Purely for the fact that Grealish has just been injured for the past few games. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with Emi Martinez. Really good signing. And Aston Villa are going to do well next season, I predict. Up next is Everton. And I mean, again, Similar story to Aston Villa and Southampton. It started so promising for Europe and then it just went downhill. At one point, I thought they were going to finish above Liverpool, which would have been big for them. So the fact they finished 10th is really, really poor. I mean, they just had such a bad drop-off towards the end of the season. And, the fact they lost at home to Sheffield United when they're pushing for Europe just says it all, really. They just didn't look interested when I watched them. So, yeah, I think it's been pretty poor in the end for Everton, considering the expectation that they placed on themselves. I think I'm going to give them a 5 out of 10. It could have been a lot better, and they've got the manager and the squad to do a lot better than 10th. Up next, Leeds United finishing 9th, which I think they finished on the highest points tally of any promoted side since 2001, which is insane. Really, really good season for Leeds. Bielsa's been really good. There was questions of them slowing down. They won all their last games. There was questions of Bamford not being good enough. He scored. How many goals did Bamford score? Bamford got 17 goals. So, really, really good season for Leeds. And next season, again, similar story to Aston Villa. If they can use the season as a platform, with fans back next season, could be pushing Europe. Really good season for Leeds. I'm going to give them an 8 out of 10. And Leeds' best player, I'm going to have to go with Patrick Bamford. I mean, the goals that he scores just speak for themselves. It's close between him and Rafinha, but yeah, I'm going to go for Bamford because he just scored. He just proved the doubters wrong, didn't he? Really, me included. I was also one of those doubters, I must say. But he's made me look stupid, so fair play to him. Up next, 8th place, Arsenal. Really, really bad season for Arsenal. It's the first time they haven't finished in the Europe space for 25 years. I mean, that is just not good enough. I mean, any Arsenal fan will tell you that this season has just been dreadful. And I've already made a video on Arsenal. You can go and watch that if you're interested in any more of my thoughts on Arsenal. But yeah, it's been a really, really bad season. And I think I can only give them a 2 out of 10. Really, really underperformed. When you actually look at the squad that they've got, I mean, Aubameyang, Nicola Pepe, Thomas Partey, Gabriel Martinelli, Bukayo Saka and Smith Rowe coming through, Kieran Tierney. I mean, they've got a really good squad. If they invest just a little bit more, maybe on a right back, on another midfielder to partner Partey, and maybe on another centre back, that squad is easily good enough to finish top 4. But finishing 8th and tailing off like they did was just so awful. Really, really, it's unforgivable in my opinion from Arteta. I mean, the way he set his team up, when they were coming into the business end of the season was just awful. And it speaks volumes as well that they got 5 wins from the last 5 games when the pressure was completely off. I mean, there's a problem with the mentality there that if you can put in those performances when it doesn't matter, you have to be able to put them in when they do matter. So yeah, 2 out of 10 for Arsenal. Really, really underperformed this season. And I think their best player, I'm going to go with Nicola Pepe. He's really, really picked up towards the end of the season. I think he's got how many goals is it? So this is me shamelessly looking up how many goals Nicola Pepe scored when I totally forgot that Bukayo Saka played for Arsenal. And yeah, looking back, editing this one, it's really obvious that it's actually Bukayo Saka that I should have chosen, not Nicola Pepe. So yeah, just to clarify, best player for Arsenal this season, Bukayo Saka. They just need to get Aubameyang firing again. Imagine if they have a firing Nicola Pepe and a firing Aubameyang. That is a really, really good strike force. Put Martinelli on the left-hand side of that. You got a really potent attack. Up next is Tottenham Hotspur, a similar terrible season for them. It started off really promising. It was looking like it was going to be a Champions League spot at least, and it was also looking like they were going to, contend for the title alongside Liverpool. But that dropped like a lead balloon, didn't it? Really. There's a lot of friction within the club. I mean, the Super League stuff, Daniel Levy and the protests and everything like that. Similar to Arsenal, really. But Tottenham were just embarrassing throughout this season, on and off the pitch. I mean, not only have you got the Super League, but a little thing that I noticed, or that everyone noticed, that was pointed out to me when fans returned, is they put all the fans on the top tiers so they could have all the advertising on the bottom tiers, putting the fans far away from the football to prioritise the money. And I just thought to myself, how tone deaf can you be after everything that's going on with the Super League, the lack of investment in the squad that people are complaining about, and you're pacing the fans up in the top corner of the stadium so you can carry on advertising, charging £60 for a ticket, only for Tottenham to lose. I mean, it's just embarrassing, really. If you're a Tottenham fan, I do genuinely feel sorry for you because your club is being run by, people that don't have your best interests at heart. I think the Amazon Prime documentary did its best to make Daniel Levy look like a somewhat nice, relatable guy, but the mask has really slipped this season, hasn't it? I mean, the Super League and the ticket prices and all that stuff. I mean, it's just embarrassing. Really, really bad season for Tottenham. And just for the fact they finished above Arsenal, they can have 3 out of 10. It's also looking like Harry Kane's going to leave, and they're going to be in the UEFA Conference League next season, which is a step down from the Europa League. I mean, it's just poor, really. 3 out of 10. But the best player this season is undoubtedly Harry Kane, top goal scorer, top assists. But it's probably the last season that he's played in a Tottenham shirt, so it's bittersweet. 6th place, West Ham. A brilliant season for West Ham. They've seriously overperformed. I mean, to be perfectly honest, at the start of the season, when I watched them against Newcastle and they lost, I was tipping them for relegation, and they've just absolutely proved me wrong. They proved everyone wrong. They've been really good, really fun to watch as well. And I mean, they brought some really good players through. I mean, Souček, Soufal, Declan Rice, Mikel Antonio's been really good. Ben Rama's coming on. I mean, they're looking like a really, really good side. And the fact they've achieved Europa League, speaks volumes to the progression of the club, because people were tipping them for relegation, like I was. So yeah, West Ham, similar realm to Leeds. It's been a really good season for them. And I'm going to give them a 9 out of 10 because they achieved Europa League, which was far beyond any of their wildest dreams really from the start of the season. It's a shame that they couldn't have just secured the Champions League, but they're not going to complain at that. They've built a really good side there, and they'll be competing in the Europa League next season. They'll be up there. They'll want to win that competition. So yeah, 9 out of 10 for West Ham. Best player for West Ham. There's a lot of them. I think I'm going to give it to Thomas Souček because the impact he's had on that team is just unrivaled. I mean, he is a threat on both ends, isn't he? He's really good defensively, he's good on the ball, and he's always heading in goals every time. I've got him on my fantasy team. He's really cheap and he just scores. He seemingly scores every week, so yeah, fair play to him. Honourable mention to Lingard as well. When he came into West Ham, he did really, really well, and they'll probably want to secure him, on a permanent transfer. But Soufal's just been consistent throughout the whole season, whereas Lingard came in January. So that's why I couldn't give it to him. But he's definitely up there, and he'll probably be on the plane for the Euros this summer. Up next, 5th is Leicester, and again, they've bottled top 4. Oh my god, it happened last season, it's happened this season. I think they're the team that spent the longest in the top 4, and then they were pipped on the final day. And the thing is, they could have finished top 4 because Chelsea lost to Aston Villa 2-1. Their destiny was in their own hands, and yet they managed to concede 3 goals to Tottenham within the last 20 minutes or so. I just think it's poor. It's poor. They lost 5 of their last 8 games, and it just shows they weren't prepared for the run-in. And otherwise, they'd had a really good season, and they'd won the FA Cup. And I know I'm not basing my ratings on domestic competitions and whatnot, but oh my god, they should have used that as a platform to go on, bring that mentality in and secure top 4, but they didn't. So I can't give them too high purely for the fact that they bottled top 4, and I'm sure a lot of Leicester fans out there will be really, really peeved that they've done that for the 2nd year running. So yeah, they've been a good team to watch. They have been good. I mean, I'm being a bit harsh on them purely for the fact that I wanted them to do well. I wanted them to get top 4 because I like seeing teams that don't always get top 4 do well and playing Europe. But yeah, I think I'm going to give Leicester a 7. I think I'm going to give them 6 out of 10. It would have been an 8 out of 10 if they just finished in the top 4, but yeah, they couldn't. Best player for Leicester this season, probably Kelechi Iheanacho. I mean, he scored plenty of goals. He secured himself a new contract, and he's looking like a new player. Honourable mention for Tielemans as well, because he's been up there as well, but it's looking like he might leave as well. Up next, number 4 is Chelsea, and again, a mixed bag of a season, but the reverse this time. They've gone from being really poor to a really solid side. Under Frank Lampard, they played some exciting stuff here and there, but at the end of the day, they just weren't getting the results. They were dropping off down the table. They lost to Arsenal on Boxing Day, but yeah, they managed to secure top 4 in the end, which is a win in itself. They've got a couple players playing really well. I think Reece James has been really good. Mason Mount's been really good. Question marks over Timo Werner and Havertz still, but it's first season and with COVID and everything, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt and watch how they do next season. So yeah, I think I'm going to give Chelsea a 7 out of 10. Haven't played particularly great football throughout the year, but they finished top 4, and they would have taken that considering how bad they were at one point under Lampard. Best player for Chelsea as well is their player of the season, Mason Mount, really good player, and I hope he'll be good for England in the Euros as well. 3rd is Liverpool. Oh my god, what a rollercoaster of a season they've had. I mean, started off well, they were top at Christmas, and they just completely tailed off. They lost 6 home games in a row after not losing for over 60 home games in a row. So yeah, they managed to overcome so much adversity. I mean, 16 centre-back pairings. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And the fact that predominantly most of their games were with Nat Phillips and Reece Williams at the back, and they still finished 3rd, is a massive success for them. And it means they've got the Champions League money for next season. So yeah, I think it's been pretty successful in the grand scheme of things, considering the adversity they had to overcome. But it's still not what they wanted. It's still been a pretty difficult season for them. So I'll give them 7 out of 10. and their best player has been undoubtedly Mo Salah. I mean, 22 goals this season. Without him, where would they be? Probably in the Europa League, maybe even lower. Up next, second place, Manchester United. Pretty good season for them. I mean, finishing second, finishing above Liverpool is good for them. And, it's a good platform to build off. Played some nice football, showed they had the mentality for it, overcoming loads of losing positions to win. I think they got the most points from losing positions. So yeah, it's been an okay season, but they want to be challenging, really. The fact that they got, beaten so comfortably in the Premier League table by their Manchester rivals is not good enough for them. So they'll be wanting to do better, but considering the bad football they've played over the past few seasons, I think it's been pretty good in the league for them. So I'm going to give Man United an 8 out of 10. And their best player this season, there's a few people. I could go for Luke Shaw on this one, but I think I'm going to give it with Bruno Fernandes just because of the effect that he's had on this Man United team. And without him, where would they be? Again, would they be in the Champions League places? It's debatable, maybe not. And finally, first, Manchester City. Really, really good season for them. They're miles better than anyone in the league. It's not been the best season for them, for their standards. I mean, they managed to hit 100 points and 99 points. And this season, how many points did they get? 86 points. So it's actually been a bit of a drop-off. But yeah, I think with COVID football and the hectic schedule, I think it was built for Man City the most, just because they have the deepest squad. So they're probably the favourites to win in these conditions. But, they still have to do it. And they were comfortably better than every other team. So yeah, I think it's been a 9 out of 10 season for Man City because, again, a 13-point drop-off. It's not their best season, but 9 out of 10. They'll be probably back and win another league next season. I mean, they've won 3 of the last 4 leagues. So yeah, 9 out of 10. And their best player for me, Ruben Diaz, Football Writers Young Player of the Year or whatever. Or the Football Writers Player of the Year, actually, not even the young player. So yeah, 9 out of 10. And I'll end this with my goal of the season, player of the season, all that stuff. So goal of the season's got to be Manuel Lanzini against Tottenham. Last minute, outside of the boot, curled right into the top right-hand corner. Without that goal, they would have finished 7th. Tottenham would have finished 6th. And that's the difference between the Europa League and the Europa Conference League. So yeah, that's definitely my goal of the season. Player of the season, I'm going with Harry Kane. Most goals and most assists in a team that finished 7th. I mean, that takes some doing. So definitely Harry Kane. Young player of the season, Ruben Diaz. City's player of the season. He's only 23, I think. So yeah, he comfortably wins that award. Moment of the season has to be Alisson's goal against West Brom. I mean, that had everyone baffled. And considering all the adversity that he's faced off the pitch with losing his father, I think if it was going to be anyone in that situation, I mean, Alisson is the most poetic one for it to be. So yeah, that finishes this one. Thanks very much for watching. I'm sure there'll be loads of people that disagree with my ratings and my players that I've picked. But if you do disagree, leave your comment down below. Tell me who you think I should have picked instead. But yeah, if you do like this video, if you do agree with this video, please make sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel. Yeah, so yeah.